Chaos reigns.
Yep. That's right. This week we watched The Fox, the Witch, and the Willem Dafoe, a.k.a. Lars von Trier's Antichrist.
That's cinema, baby.
No, Mr. Wilson. I don't have to take that kind of talk from anyone.
That's right, you don't. How about going outside and trying to kick me around?
I'm not supposed to fight with the guests, Mr. Wilson.
I'm not a guest tonight, you yellow bastard. I happen to be an intruder.
Hello, and welcome to The Good, the Pod, and the Ugly, a film podcast where we pair movies to gather a better understanding of the filmographies of notable directors or actors, typically one per season, often with guests. I'm your co-host, Kenneth.
Hi, Kenneth. Oh, I'm Thomas, another co-host.
Oh, I'm Ryan, and I'm here too. Hello, Kenneth and Thomas.
Yeah, we are joined this entire season by Jack. Hi, Jack.
Hi.
And this season concludes with this pairing, season 13.
Woo.
And I don't know, in honor of chaos reigning, we're going to do something a little special and go out of our normal chronological order.
Yes. So we should say that this is a 4x4 season where each one of us, the four of us gathered here today in this cabin, picked four directors and the four movies we felt best exemplified their entire career. We started out with Robert Aldrich from me. We did Simon Lang from Jack. We did Big Willie, William Wyler from Ryan. And now we are in the last two films of Thomas's pick, Lars von Trier. And what are the movies we are pairing, and why are we doing them in reverse chronological order?
Well, the movies we're pairing are the subsequential, they come right after each other, Boss of It All and Antichrist. But we're going to flip it and do Antichrist first because I guess I was on record saying that the Boss of It All is a palate cleanser.
Yes.
Which it kind of is. And we'll talk about Lars von Trier and comedy next week.
Mm-hmm.
But this week, we're doing Antichrist. And there's a few things that these two films have in common. I will go ahead and say a few of those things if no one objects.
I have nothing. Go for it.
Both open with somebody getting fucked in a bathroom. Right? One contractually, one, vaginally penis intercourse.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, somebody gets
Thomas
hit
has
in both of
definitely
these.
had intercourse, y'all. Don't take Thomas's awkwardness there as a sign of his virginity.
Just because I don't have children that are human doesn't mean that I don't know what the sex is. Yeah, and both somebody gets punched. Both there is someone outside of a window, and that person is going up, and one person is going down. But both kind of open with somebody outside of a window.
Oh my god!
Both have characters suffering from a form of rural depression, and that rural depression causes them to hit the main male character, and a part of the body that sticks out. For one, that's the nose, and for the other, that is the penis. Oh, I guess both characters maybe try and play God. Oh, and both a husband and a wife reconnect. People visit and talk to animals. In Antichrist, animals talk back, but they go and see animals in both. Both. This is pretty crazy. Have teddy bears, right?
Yeah.
And I guess lastly, proverbially or literally, you get to see the shoe on the other foot.
You also forgot in the third act in both movies, somebody or a group of people get screwed.
Yeah, no, I definitely picked up on that because I know how sex works. So 2009, we've covered since the start, the past 12 seasons. Julie and Julia came out the same year as Antichrist. Public Enemies.
Yeah.
In fact, I think we've covered Public Enemies twice, maybe once on a guest podcast.
We did.
Bad Lieutenant, Protocol New Orleans.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah. And I wasn't on it, but Invictus.
Man, you were on a roll there with some good movies, and then you had to bring up.
Well, what you do is you do a shit sandwich, which is like a compliment sandwich, but you put the two worst things on either end.
Okay, well done.
I mean,
Yeah.
Invictus can't be that bad because it solved racism.
That's true. It did.
Yeah.
Yeah. So first time for y'all watching this film, Antichrist by Lars von Trier?
Jack,
First and last. Yep.
Ryan,
Second time. And probably not the last.
like Jack, I watched it once when it came out and said never again. But Thomas, you pulled me back in, and fuck you.
Oh. I don't understand that reaction, but we'll get into it later in this episode. For myself, I saw it in theaters, and then I've seen it repeatedly since. And I own the Criterion Blu-ray.
How many times have you seen it, Thomas? Do you know?
Fewer than 6, more than
Okay.
3, maybe I guess 4 or 5.
This is interesting to me because normally I'm the one who's seen a movie like a large number of times.
Well, I saw it in theater and really enjoyed it. Lee, my partner, wife, roommate, spouse,
The one you do the sex with, apparently.
yeah, regularly,
Pet
despite
co-parent.
being married, with each other. I was applying. Yeah.
That's important
Good
clarification.
clarification. Yeah.
Yeah. She had also seen it, and then we both really were eager to watch it again once we figured out we both had, I guess we maybe watched The Idiots or something else, and so yeah, she was a fan of the movie, and so we watched it a few times, and then for the podcast, I rewatched it and then watched it with the commentary finally, between LVT and a film scholar out of Britain.
I typically don't watch commentaries. I don't really like knowing what the director thinks I should be thinking about their film, but this is one where I was very tempted after it finished to smash that commentary button and go again.
Yeah, you should. And because he won't give you anything definitive.
Right.
So this film premiered at Cannes, right? One of the kind of BS filler supplements to the Criterion Collection is them at Cannes. And somebody, I can't remember who, but a reporter asks him during the press interview to justify making the film. Like, how can you, like, you have to, and Lars von Trier is like, I don't understand why you think I have to justify making a film.
Yeah.
Other than I am the greatest director of all time. It started to like, in his joking way, just go as far as he could with the bit of, yeah, because it's a weird premise, I think, especially for somebody coming out of, I guess, a world of art and this film itself. Like it's, but we'll get into that maybe.
Yeah. We should because I can understand it, hating this film, but I can't understand questioning its value as art.
Or questioning not why did you make it, but how justify having made it.
Right.
Is an interesting question to ask somebody at a film festival.
Yeah. It implies it's like pornographic. It has no value.
But yeah, I can see it maybe if you were part of HUAC or something, the House of Un-American Activities Committee.
Well, I think every film has value and counts as art, and I think that is an unfair question, unless you're talking about Damien Leone's Terrifier, Terrifier 2, or Terrifier 3, which don't count as movies.
Oh man, you're asking for it.
Yeah.
The next 4x4.
Wait till you hear about his new Peacock series, Little Terrifier, which is an animated adult cartoon version of the Terrifier universe.
That's the first thing.
It's Terrifier as a little kid.
That's the first thing
I
would
just
watch.
made that up.
I would watch that.
It sounds about right there, doesn't it?
Let's book it, Ken.
All right, Little Terrifier.
Oh, we could also take it around the world like the BBC did The Office.
Yes. Boy. But Antichrist.
So, to get back to this. And a little bit of the background, just LVT at this time. In 2006 and 2007, he he had severe medical grade depression, which is one of the reasons that he hadn't made a film in 3 years since Boss of It All, which we'll talk about next week. And he, coming out of that depression, started to write. He didn't know if he was ever going to make a film again, in the throes of it. And coming out of it, he did what he's always done for his anxiety and other things, and tried to put his energies into a film. And originally, this was, and I think I sent a video out from the Blu-ray of some of the test screenings that they did, or the proof of concept reels for the some of the effects in this film.
Yeah, nuts falling on someone's head.
And did you realize who that was?
I'm
pretty sure it's Jens Abinus, the guy who's going to be the boss of it all next week.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So originally he was going to make this with a smaller budget with a Danish crew, actors, and just a European crew, similar to the boss of it all, or his early film. And as financing went along, the movie got a little bit bigger and they needed larger stars. And William Dafoe actually called up Lars because he had heard that he was going through depression. Dafoe had been on the television series The Kingdom and was in, it was either Manderley or, it was in Manderley, which is the second of the U.S. trilogy after Dogville. So he was in his most recent film. He's like, I haven't heard anything about Lars von Trier in a while. I haven't heard from him in a while. What are you working on? And Lars sent him the script, and he was on board. And originally, Lars wanted to, I'm calling him by his first name, but his last name isn't truly Von Trier, so he just added the Von. Yeah, LVT cast Dafoe, and from that was able to get more financing and got the Neapolitan baby. I think that's what they call those these days. Napo, especially if you're French. Charlotte Gainsbourg.
Yeah, superstar, international sensation, Charlotte Gainsbourg. Yeah, Sergei Gainsbourg's daughter.
Who herself.
He once wrote a song about incest.
Which she sang on, if I remember right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What a cool family. It's really surprising that somebody from that early upbringing would turn out to be the person who is the star of Antichrist. She's a very talented singer and actress, but also probably pretty fucked up.
It is fascinating how she gives LVT license or permission in a way by being involved in this in Nymphomaniac. I think because she is so well respected that it's like, well, it can't be that, wrong if she's involved. It must have some artistic value. Which,
the same thing with Dafoe, I think, in Antichrist, for sure.
Yeah. I don't question the artistic value of anything LVT does, but I do recognize, per the Cannes question, that it is something that other people dispute.
Yeah, so before we get into the plot, Thomas, to piggyback on you and what Von Trier was going through at the time, this movie is a big one for him in his artistic career, because previously, Von Trier had been anti-women, anti-man, anti-everyone, anti-narrative, anti-formalism, anti-American, anti-depression, anti-film, anti-video, anti-depression treatment, anti-flying, anti-landing, given how some of his films end, anti-capitalism, anti-anarchy, anti-hygiene, anti-matter, anti-tipping, anti-whitewater rafting, anti-decorum, anti-subtlety, anti-alcohol, anti-a few less butt thrusts Dafoe, anti-sobriety, anti-uncle, anti-children, anti-animals, anti-insects, but before this film, never Antichrist.
Oh, wait, I think you're wrong. I mean, not just to call you out on being wrong about something, but I think Anti-Man was Paul Rudd and Douglas. I don't think LVT was in that.
Okay. All right.
Antichrist. What about Uncle Christ?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, no, you're right. Antichrist might be an interesting second reading or articulation of this film. I don't think this has anything to do with anything else. Just to circle back very quickly to Gainsbourg. In 2007, she underwent surgery for cerebral hemorrhage that she had potentially from a water skiing accident that she had in the States. And she had been out of work for a while because of that, despite films coming out in 2007 because of just editing process. So this was her getting back on the horse, as it were, to ride, not to eat, just to clarify for our French listeners. Because she is French. Again, a Napoleon baby? I almost did that right. But she said that when she was being cast, it didn't seem like Von Trier was very interested in her body of work or many other things that she the common director would have. Instead, it seemed like he just wanted her to make sure that she was going to finish the project. Like she was on board for everything, understood what it was going to entail, and would be there to the end. To that, Dafoe and other people on the crew were very curious if von Trier was going to finish the film. There were days when he was leaving set. He was like, I don't think I'm going to be back tomorrow. It's really a struggle for me. And so it seemed like his depression was not just ongoing, but significantly influencing the production of the film. He did every day show up, though sometimes he'd be in his trailer for a portion of it, watching remotely on the monitors. But it seemed like almost for Dafoe, and us telling a bit of kindness to like that everybody was giving him to try and bring him out of his funk.
That makes sense. From other interviews with Dafoe and talking to his collaborators, he seems like the menchiest dude, like just really nice, and he's always working with young directors to give them a break. And
yeah, you forgot one thing, Thomas, that both movies had in common. Both movies have jerks.
Oh, okay. Yeah. There's some jerking in one, and
yeah. So, if you hadn't seen Antichrist, and when we get to reactions, my opinion will be that you shouldn't. It opens with a lovingly shot black and white sequence of a husband and wife doing it with inserts of actual inserts, which aren't the actual actors. And
is that what took you out of the film? Is that why you're against it?
Meaning explicit penetrative sex, audience.
Yeah, egregious. Like, hey, they're having sex, but we're not really sure until we actually see the insertion. It's beautifully shot. It looks like a perfume commercial.
Yeah,
like
well, it's black and white, extreme slow motion because they shot at a very high frame rate.
It's very lovely. It's like Clapton by Calvin Klein.
Wow.
Which leads to the son of the two parents jumping out the window.
Yes, intercut with this perfume ad sex scene, we see flashes of their probably 2-year-old son climbing out of his crib and getting onto the desk near his crib and stepping out of an open window and falling to his death.
Yeah. And which is done pretty artfully. Again, like maybe a Simpsons parody of a perfume commercial with the bear hitting the ground. His teddy bear.
Yeah.
Versus actually seeing a child violence.
I just because, Ken, you mentioned that you felt that the sex was the penetration was unnecessary. I really like this scene because the kind of sex they're having is totally, I don't know what you all do. It seems very unrealistic to have this kind of torrid, multi-room, knocking things over, passionate sex, morning sex.
Wait, no one's morning sex comes later.
As parents of a young child who is in the next room. Like, I think it's intentionally exaggerated, the look and the romance and spectacle of this scene, because it's just not I just don't think most married people fuck this way, particularly when they got a little kid in the next room.
It's a total fantasy.
Yeah.
A weird fantasy, given that the kid jumps out the window.
Yeah, I guess I'm going to say two things about that. One, I appreciate when a film, I think this film at a few different junctures tells you this is the film you're watching. And if you're not on board for it, that was a great time to leave.
Yeah.
And I think the extreme close up of penetrative sex is the first instance of that. The second thing that I think is interesting about it is that we don't get a lot of backstory for these two unnamed characters. Everybody else in the film has blurred faces. These are the two people that we actually see, and they aren't given names, nor, I guess as we get into it, do we really know their backstory? What we do, that's part of the plot, is he uncovering her life for the past 6 months or so. But only thing we know is that they fuck, and they fuck hard and everywhere. like a married couple does, I think. Not to speak out of turn, but I'm one of a pair, and you two are ones of pairs. So so far we have one person saying this is what every morning is like, and we have Ryan saying that this is kind of unrealistic. I don't know if in front of your son you want to say too much, Ken, but you would be the deciding vote here.
It's important, the context of having a very young child is it's a period in a relationship that is totally different from any other period. And anyone who's had a young kid, even if you are a knockdown, drag out fucker 90% of your life, this 10% period, you're just not doing that.
So I guess I never thought of it that way, Thomas. I thought that it was part of their character. I didn't see it as an accurate representation of being married, particularly middle aged, like Gainsbourg and Dafoe are in this movie. It's completely unrealistic, but also it goes to their characters and how he could have been so blindsided by how crazy she is, despite being a therapist. Because what they had was so physical and animal.
Oh, that's.
But I want to go back. I want to go back to what you said about establishing what it is, and if you're in, you're in. If you're not, you're not. With the explicit sex. When I see it, I don't think like, oh, I'm in or out. but I'm thinking of it. Immediately pulls me out of the story, and I start thinking of, well, that's obviously not Dafoe and Gainsbourg. That's like a stunt cock and a stunt vagina, and it's just, quote unquote, inserted in there. It takes me out of the movie, and I think that's my primary problem with bad von Trier. But is he's always calling attention to himself behind the camera and the fact that it is a movie. And in the next movie we talk about, he does something similar, but to complete opposite effect. And in this one, every time something happened, it always felt like I could hear him behind the camera or at the keyboard snickering.
Yeah.
Or snickering.
Well,
Wow.
Okay, so
It's
that whole thing.
Like, oh, this is really
Dancer in the
gonna
Dark. It's from Dancer in the Dark. You're like, those aren't a American and a French body parts. Those are definitely two Swedes or something, and you're just pulled out of it.
It was all the blonde pubic hair.
I don't think the average audience would know that was a stunt cock. And in fact, I remember them having to clarify at least after the Cannes premiere, like, oh, yes, we did hire stunt doubles, even though they're clearly listed in the credits, like as the third and fourth members of the cast.
Well, no, even if you didn't know, I mean, if you were watching it, and obviously if you're watching Antichrist, it's a von Trier, you know what you're getting into before the movie even starts unspooling. But you immediately start thinking, or is that actually them? And once you start thinking that way, it pulls you out of the experience of the movie. At this point, the movie's trying to pull you in, and it really pushed me away. Both times I watched it, I'm just like, this is fucking stupid.
I guess I don't have that thought because I also don't like when I watch I like action movies, and I realize that not everybody does their own stunts. But that's just me. I'm a different viewer.
That's completely different. Somebody jumping off a building is not the same as, because not everybody.
You're not doing it right.
Everybody, most people of a certain age have fucked. Most people of a certain age have not jumped off a building or slid along a floor shooting two guns. So it is something within the human experience that you could expect two actors to do, just like you expect them to kiss. That's why it pulls me out of the movie, and he knows exactly what he's doing.
Yeah,
and that's what I fucking hate about it.
I never thought of the cock shot that way, Ken, but I do think you have an interesting point. There's a principle in film theory called distanciation, which is the process of building into your movie moments where you disrupt the narrative to remind the audience that they are watching a film from a creator who has a distinct point of view, and it's not just a magical story that's being told that's supposed to resemble real life. And von Trier is, I mean, a lot of what he does is you could call like the cinema of alienation. You know, he wants to push you away from his narratives, whether it's shooting Dancer in the Dark on a crappy DV with obviously European actors, or whether it's, you know, we'll talk about the boss of it all, but there's so many things in that movie where he's saying like, this isn't actually a story. Like, this is just me fucking around. So maybe that was part of his intent with the insert of the cock. And I can see why it would bother you.
Oh, I've been waiting for somebody to say the setup of the shot and to use the phrase cock blocking.
There is a good amount of clock blocking in this picture.
So,
That's true.
if you haven't seen Antichrist, and if you're listening to this, hopefully it won't. It's one sentence. I don't have one sentence. I'm just going to say.
I do.
I'm just going to finish the setup. Go ahead.
Toddler jailbreak goes terribly wrong in the first 5 minutes, and the rest of the movie is its repercussions.
It's about grief.
Yeah, it's about a couple's child dies under tragic circumstances, and they retreat to a cabin in the woods for a kind of forced therapeutic healing session that goes terribly wrong.
Yeah, Dafoe is a total mansplaining therapist, almost to a comedic degree.
Yeah.
And then Gainsbourg is writing some sort of thesis about the treatment of women in the distant past, the Middle Ages, or whatever, witches and shit.
And the cabin that they go to is called Eden.
Get it? And
Guys?
there's talking animals. And it everything goes horribly awry, and the film is basically Dafoe slowly uncovering that Gainsbourg was responsible for their little kid having malformed feet because she was making him wear his shoes on the wrong feet, which having a son who often did that, maybe that's true.
I did. Wait,
he did it on purpose. So I like when in the movie,
it's quite common for little kids to do.
In the movie, it's like some sort of
damage a child of that age's foot.
It's a terrifying thing in the movie, like it's the realization about like the kid's pulling on his shoes backwards. That's what they fucking do.
Yeah,
but it's made as a scary moment.
Well, this is a horror movie. It also is psychological and deals with the power dynamics. And her thesis is genocide spelled with a Y, for like gyno, or gynocide maybe is better pronunciation.
Yeah, genocide is the
some of the things that I really enjoy in this film are like the simplest horror movie things you can do, such as a string on some bushes and like pulling it so that there's like rustling movements, and that's scary.
Yeah.
Or his shoes on the wrong feet until he realizes that his shoes are always on the wrong feet, and there might be something there. It might just be a bunch of accidents, but it doesn't seem that that's likely.
Can I say, because I think there is a 180-degree opposite reading of this film from what Ken presented, which is a woman who is suffering terribly from the loss of her son, and motherhood being her biological imperative is having a deeply existential depressive crisis, is forced into a therapeutic conflict with her manipulative and controlling husband, who puts her under such emotional strain and pressure that she breaks and murders him. And
unless you watch it to the end and you realize that she watched her son get on the windowsill.
That is the question: are those flashback to the prologue memories?
No,
are they real or are they rewritten memories? Are they
the fucking scene at the beginning is, in my opinion, the fucking scene at the beginning is her memory of that night. It is not the realism of what happened. That's part of the reason why the fucking looks so crazy and romantic, is because the whole time we're seeing the event, it's her psychologically, seriously depressed interpretation and reimagining of that night's events. That's pure opinion on my part, but that's
I think that works on a vacuum for her character. But when you put that up against Dafoe's character and his uncovering of the mystery of what really happened in the cabin, it seems the movie seems to point that she did, and she's fucking nuts.
In my opinion, because the movie is about how patriarchy suppresses female emotion and natural human desire. And it creates a return of the repressed situation where he makes her into a monster. He makes her into the witch that curses him as the film goes on.
So and she has no agency but to be molded by him then. Is that what you're saying?
Because of her extremely depressed, a depressed person doesn't have agency. And someone who's been chronically depressed, that's a therapeutic condition. That's one of the diagnoses. When she talks about her abnormal grief at the beginning, that's one of the things that I feel that she's articulating. Further, I think this film is on a meta level LVT locking himself in a room with a woman like Bjork, who he's abused to make his films, and reckoning with his well-deserved reputation as a misogynist monster. And like, I think for me, this is a purifying film, and everything he does afterwards has a totally different view on the world, and is really, I shouldn't say everything because I've only seen Melancholia. Melancholia is a film that is overtly incorporating feminism into its presentation. It's from a woman's point of view, and he collaborated with a woman to get that in there as opposed to forcing it upon her. And I think this movie is like a spiritual enema for our guy.
Wow. I actually kind of like this movie.
Shut up.
No, I'm serious. I was coming into this podcast prepared to say that this is the worst movie we've ever watched for it, bar She-Devil.
Wow.
But actually, I think your interpretation of it, thinking about, I don't know, it makes a lot more sense. I think that the smarmy Lars von Trier bullshit stuff with like them not having names, which I hate. I was complaining to you about this at the pub yesterday. I hate in a story when characters are just named like him or her, or
like
he
in
or she,
Mother.
whatever it is in this.
It's so elemental, Jack. It's
It's what it is. It's lazy,
Yeah,
and it reminds me of shit that I was writing when I was 12 that I thought
100%. 100%.
So I think the stuff like that in this movie lowers my opinion of it quite a bit, but everything about it that is classic horror movie stuff, like Thomas was saying, is stuff that I think is really good and works really well.
It's fucking terrible. I don't know if you haven't seen the movie. This gets into when he discovers it, that she was crazy, and her thesis is full of a bunch of stuff that gets worse and worse, almost till her writing becomes illegible. And then they have sex in the cabin outhouse or wherever the fuck it is, the garage. Woodshed, and then she throws a block at his erect
She
member.
doesn't throw it; she smashes it.
Yeah,
and then he passes out, and then she proceeds to jerk him off, and then blood comes out.
What you think is going to be the worst thing in the film, and it's not. I mean, it's bad.
Then she takes a giant stone wheel and screws it into his calf while he's passed out. Okay. To keep him there, and then bolts it on, and then throws away the wrench.
The to your guys' point about how you think it's going to be the worst part of the movie. When I first saw this film with Thomas like a decade ago,
we watched it together.
Yeah, we watched it for a movie night. You brought it. You brought it up.
Watch it in the shower together.
And just to clarify, Jenny fucking loved this movie, and is like one of her she doesn't watch it, but it's one of her favorite artistic statements is this film. But
I would appreciate it more if I hadn't watched it.
The blood semen was so powerful that I kind of blocked out. I thought it was I thought he woke up and choked her. And so I paused the movie after the jerk off scene, and I was amazed to figure out I had forgotten there was another hour of this picture.
So Jack, I keep saying circle back. I guess I'm into geometry today. I like to square something up with you. You were coming into this film expecting to absolutely hate it. Was that based off of some type of reputation, or is it just that it's Lars von Trier? Where was the expectation to dislike this film?
Well, I knew about the blood semen, for one thing. That's because that's pretty infamous. But this always shows up on those lists of like top 10 most disturbing movies you'll never be able to finish and stuff like that. And it just has this reputation. It's like the French film Martyrs. I don't know if you guys have seen that one. It's always this and Martyrs. People are like, it's this most disturbing shit I've ever seen. And I had the same reaction to this as when I watched Martyrs. That was just disappointment, because it seems like there's a lot of stuff in here that's just edgy for no reason, without purpose. I mean, I don't understand. I really like I said, I really like a lot of this, but there's just so much of it that I can't wrap my head around in a way that just feels really smarmy and annoying.
Yeah, it feels like a 14-year-old going to church wearing a death metal T-shirt.
Totally. Yeah.
That's Von Trier at his worst.
I mean,
But the stuff.
that's LVT all the time. I think that
Not
this is actually
necessarily.
the most mature. Yeah, I think this and Melancholia by far the most mature artistic statements he's ever made.
So what I will say that about Antichrist, that on the positive, I guess it's a positive, is how indelible some of the imagery was, having seen it when it originally came out in the aughts. How much of it I remembered. So that is some kind of testament to some kind of artistry. I'm not sure what, but it really made me not want to see it again.
It should be said too that it's got a lot of, when we're not seeing torture and pornographic fucking, there's just some of the most beautiful slow motion, high frame rate cinematography I've seen anywhere. It's the only thing since The Element of Crime where Von Trier has expressed a true interest in the beautiful aesthetics of cinema.
Yeah, I think we get like 3 portions, maybe 4 portions of this film. One being his standard jerky camera that he developed during The Kingdom, where it allows him to cut and do time cuts. And we'll see it in Boss of It All as well. But it's a standard like Lars von Trier behind the camera after his Europa trilogy. Then we have what you were talking about, the slow motion imagery from everything from like walking across a field in one's memory to going to Eden to the fade in, fade out of them fucking near the tree with all the bodies that come through that. Then you have the extreme close-ups, and it feels like Cuckoo movie from a couple years back. I've stolen from it, where Lars von Trier calls it the lens baby. It's 2 different lenses that have a bit of rubber between them so that you can distort as you have an extreme close-up whenever you're having a panic attack. So it's like a extreme fisheye close-up lens that as you start to push on it, it'll distort.
Ari asked, I didn't mean to interrupt. I thought you were finished. Sorry.
Which is what gives the sensation of like a panic attack throughout this, which Dafoe will eventually have, if I remember right, towards the end.
You mean after his dick is broken and his calf is screwed to a giant stone wheel, and then he crawls into a cave with a bird?
Yeah. Some sort of malformed zombie fetus crow?
Yeah,
yes,
I guess. And then the fourth visual language is the extreme close-ups, which are reserved for the dick smash or the jerk off and the clitorectomy.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. Yeah,
where you have a close-up, and that close-up is very well shot, well lit, static, so that you have that.
So
you have the frame right in your face.
You could answer this question, which when we were watching it the other night, when the clitorectomy happens and they show it, I yelled out, "Why?"
Because she is
no, why show it? I mean, doing it is one thing. That's a choice. But intentionally rubbing your face in it, much as they rubbed your face into the jerk off and the shower scene. Why? What artistic purpose does it have other than to shock and provoke?
Because it happens to hundreds of thousands of girls in Africa and the Middle East every year. And it's a function of the patriarchy, which is what I feel this movie is an extreme metaphorical interrogation of. So I think it's essential to say, like, this is something that happens in the world that you've never seen and never even probably thought about, but like, it's a reality.
Okay, but she is not being forced to do it by anybody. Well, she's not in Africa where it's part of some ritual. She's a crazy person who used to put her kid's shoes on backwards and screwed her husband's calf into a giant stone wheel, and she is doing it. How does that represent what a poor person from Africa has done to them without their choice? It's totally her choice.
I think the shoes are a metaphor for the way that parents, and we know LVT was close to his mom, I think specifically mothers, unintentionally malform their children by passing on the problems that they themselves inherited from their parents. And I think the overall, what Charlotte Gainsbourg goes through once she gets to the woods with Willem Dafoe is meant to show how the oppressive forces of the patriarchy, in the name of helping people and keeping society organized and in a good state of reasonable rationality, the patriarchy oppresses women. And the final inversion, when Charlotte Gainsbourg finally snaps, that's because she is now a self-hating woman. He has convinced her that all of the impulses that she has as a natural woman in the world are what led to the death of her son. And when she's acting out against him, she is fulfilling what she sees as her natural impulsive role as a woman under the patriarchy. Now, having been convinced that she is evil, she tries to kill him and then cuts off her clit, which is the source of her pleasure, which caused the death of her son. And the only reason she exists as a woman is to propagate. So her life is now meaningless. She's taking away her ability to enjoy pleasure ever again as punishment, self-inflicted punishment for the death of her son, which I don't even think was her fault to begin with. So
that's a lot of squinting, because if you look at within the narrative of the movie, we're not talking about what we see as metaphor of the enemy, but within the hard facts of the story, she is alone in the cabin with her kid working on her thesis for months and months. So she is not under the sway or the thrall of the patriarchy or Dafoe mansplaining therapy. She is completely on her own. And when he's looking through her little journal, she is literally going crazy as he's turning the pages. That is her on her own.
Yeah.
So
but her crazy there, Ken, isn't untethered to the history of the patriarchy. She might be reading, I think there's a couple of different ways of reading. I mean, there's a lot of ways of watching this film and reading into it.
He is also an absent father, and he uses his wife as a fuck toy. Like that's the picture that's painted of their relationship before the death of the son. Is he had no idea. He intentionally stayed away from his wife and child for months at a time. He had no idea what was going on in his wife's brain. And the only thing they do is passionately fuck every once in a while. And then things go wrong in the relationship and she expresses an emotion. And his response is to take her away from the world, isolate her until she is like him, totally emotionally distant. This man loses his child, and we never see him have an emotional response to that. His emotional response is to oppress her emotional response. I think I don't say this, watching this movie with a woman was very enlightening about that there's two ways of interpreting what you're seeing. And I'll admit a lot of what I'm telling you came out of discussions I had with Jenny after watching the film the first time. So much of this isn't my original thought.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. I didn't realize that was his kid. Like, I assumed that he was maybe the stepdad and that the original dad was out of the picture.
Yeah, no, that's how fucked up. That's how shitty of a dad he is.
Yeah. Well, we also neglected to mention that this takes place in Washington State, or at least the beginning does.
Yeah.
Well, so I read that on the Wikipedia, but is there a text rule for that? I don't remember.
Yeah.
There was something at the beginning.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's the mail that he gets, the death
got it.
report has King County, Washington.
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Because I was wondering, I mean, it probably takes place in the same universe as Dancer in the Dark.
Yes.
It very well could.
Where was this filmed? Was it filmed in Europe?
Yeah, it's filmed
absolutely.
in I saw at the end, it's filmed in a Scandinavian forest. The forest is so big that it spreads across multiple countries' boundaries, and it didn't say specifically. It just said this forest.
Huh.
So did Kin quit the podcast in protest?
I think so. Yeah. I don't know. I think
As a final act of misogyny?
I don't think interpreting this movie different from how I interpret it is misogynistic by any means. I think everything Ken's saying is a totally valid interpretation. I just think that there's a completely alternate viewing of it because it is about a male and female character. I think he's trying to present a film that can be read.
I came back. I just really had to pee.
Was there any blood?
No, but while I was doing that, it occurred to me that what you were saying to me about my reaction to the movie is similar to what Dafoe was trying to do to Gainsbourg.
Right.
Yes.
And it's like, I almost feel like I am being mansplained, that my feelings about this movie are not valid because I'm not seeing it for what it is.
To be clear, and as I was saying while you were gone, Ken, I had a passionate reaction because I think that there is an alternate interpretation. I don't think there's anything wrong with you. I don't think there's meant to be one interpretation of this film. I think he was trying to do a both sides thing. And I think the Dafoe, he is the main character, right? He's the protagonist. We see everything from his point of view after the initial sex scene. So if anything, I'm the one presenting the galaxy brain reading. I don't think
I don't think so. I mean, I think it's hard to have this as I think it's there in the film, what you're saying, Ryan, which is surprising to have me agree with you on pretty much anything. I watch this film very similar to how I watch Mother, another film with a limited cast and unnamed characters. Also about a woman being controlled, but is from a less secular understanding of the world or portrayal of it. It's closer to I would say that this is a very pagan film.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting for me in that. And I think that goes into the Antichrist title and how it's viewed. I do think people watch this film for what Jack did not want to watch it for, which is just how extreme it's supposed to be. But I think von Trier includes. I don't have a justification for including those items aside from I don't have a justification for omitting them. If it takes it out of the film, okay. I think that amount of violence, whether it's implicit or shown, is the same to me. And there's a certain film viewing delectation of like, what are they going to show? And I do think that the clitorectomy isn't led up to. It's not foreshadowed. It feels fairly abrupt until you get the close up of her holding her clitoral hood, and this is
it's a common and this is very like specialty academic stuff, but that act is a part of the meaning of the term genocide. So anybody once he sees that book and starts looking into it, for those familiar with the history of that idea, it's kind of implied that might be something that comes up later. I do a couple of the things you said, Thomas, both about the way the film was shot and then about it being pagan resonated with me. I think this film is very influential on Midsommar, which is like my favorite film of the last decade. And he uses Ari Aster mimics that anxiety attack framing several times in Midsommar, which I didn't realize until rewatching this. And then also, Midsommar is a movie literally all about paganism and stuff explicitly. It's not subtextual like it is here, but a lot of the same themes repeat in that movie, including, I believe that movie is more or less about the same thing this movie is.
Where does the remake of Wicker Man fit into that thesis?
Right? The bees! I think Neil LaBute was trying to do something similar, but I think Neil LaBute is in fact a misogynist, and so therefore was unable to convincingly make a feminist narrative.
And I would say both Midsommar and Wicker Man, one movie I appreciate, won't say which, are closer to realistic. They're trying to be grounded in reality. And I think that there's along with the penetrative sex in the shower at the very beginning, The next moment, I think, is really are you on board for this movie or not? And a lot of people in Cannes walked out, which is perfectly understandable, is when the fox speaks and says chaos reigns. And I remember watching that the first time thinking, fuck, am I in for this movie? I guess I'm going to double down. I'm on board. There's going to be Disneyfication of animals that are going to talk at different points in this. And it's going to become a little bit more magical than the realism.
They kind of do. I mean, if they all talked, it would be completely like a Disney movie. I would like to see Disney's remake of
it's the 17 Disney movie
with songs.
So in the history of ideas, Descartes said, "I think, therefore I am," and the larger context was he was for the Catholic Church and the narrative around the metaphysics of Christianity. Descartes separated the body from the mind and said human beings are actually just our brains and our souls, and the body and the earth are a cursed trial that we must endure before we get our reward of being bodiless in heaven. And from then on, you see there being a religious and philosophical justification for both the subjugation of women and the destruction of the natural environment. And part of the whole Disney magic of the forest is putting you in that Willem Dafoe, in my opinion, that Willem Dafoe patriarchal headspace of like, he gets out there and he's terrified because it's all disorder. And instead of seeing the beauty in the world, all he sees is the natural things that occur every day that people who think that nature is beautiful and wonderful and magical and Disney-like just ignore whenever they go to the forest or whatever. He just sees that all at once and sees a chaotic world that must be controlled. And he sees that manifested primarily in his wife, who must be, subjugated and brought back to normal function.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't use Descartes as the juncture there, but yeah, that was already there throughout it. But yeah, he definitely amplifies things. I think what's interesting for me in this film, in addition to the things I've already said that are interesting, but is the depiction of nature, because nature, it would seem, by this film's depiction, isn't good or evil. It's its own entity, because nature seems very negative, very evil. And the acorn, just like the idea of the acorns, and there's thousands of seeds and very few ever actually make it into being a tree, and how tragic that is, is if you think of every sperm being sacred, how much, how many galaxies are underneath my bed and Kleenex, right? Or wherever the Bill Hicks joke is. Of clean.
Oh yeah, Bill Hicks joke, sure.
And so, yeah, I think that's an interesting aspect which plays into the paganism, plays into the idea of control and Dafoe being controlling. Because at the end, I think the ending is very ambiguous. I'm curious
if anyone poisoned himself with the berries and
is hallucinating
or dead.
Huh.
I don't remember the name of it. Maybe one of you guys can help me out. I don't have my letterbox open, but there's a Japanese movie about people replacing their faces and stuff from like the 1950s. Anyway, this is the same ending as that movie. It's all the people with blurry faces, and then he walks into the crowd. An homage, he might say.
Full of women.
Yes.
Girls.
I think they're all walking up there as like they're going to go mourn their lost fellow witch.
Sister? Yeah.
Yeah. It reminds me of the last scene of Copenhagen Cowboy. When all the
to your reading of this entire movie, I guess I could reframe that as him in the last throes of life from eating the poison berries, which I every time, both times I watch it, I just wish they cut from him eating the berries to him lying there dead with foam coming out of his mouth, because that would be really funny.
Yeah.
But I think, yeah, he's totally dead. And as he's dying, he realizes all he wrought upon women from the evils of patriarchy. And that's his comeuppance. Nature always wins.
Yeah.
I've never had a poison berry reading of this film. So that's
No?
No.
Really? Because
Are you afraid of
why
berries in
include
the
it? No,
forest?
why include it? Why include it at the very end of the movie if they aren't poison?
Because nature can also nourish.
Oh, I thought it. I interpret it. I think I don't believe any interpretation of anything is incorrect, but I interpret it the way Ken did with. He doesn't know anything about this natural world, so he just eats berries because he's hungry, and it ends up killing him because he's a dumb dude.
I think that would be interesting. I think if Von Trier intended that, we would get him puking.
What was your interpretation?
Into the camera.
I might have dropped out a little bit during this point, so I might have missed that he ate berries at all.
Fair enough.
But
I would guarantee you that there was more of him puking, or there was scenes of him puking shot, and then they decided to leave it ambiguous.
I think it's cool that it does read the way Thomas suggested too, and that maybe he survives, and then there's just this little note of mourning for Charlotte Gainsbourg.
You're not eating a fucking berry lost in the woods with less than 60 seconds left in the story and just have it be nourishment.
Why?
That doesn't make any fucking sense. So why include it at all? Why not just have all the
because he has to
blurry-faced girls
eat
walking
or
up
drink,
towards him?
or he has to have something as he's leaving.
There is zero in the story about sustenance or health. He doesn't wrap up his. Well, I mean, I guess he wraps up his leg and whatnot and does that. But there's nothing about this movie about sustenance or nature providing anything other than indifferent terror on the.
Well,
on
the
the
bird gives
protagonists.
him the wrench, right? Isn't the
That's
bird knocking at the floorboard, which lets him know that there's a wrench down
that's
there?
like very reminiscent of The Shining, where who let Jack out of the cooler or the pantry. Did you guys, while I was peeing, did you talk about how much he either pays homage or just flat out rips off David Lynch in almost the entirety of this film with its sound design, down to Gainsbourg and Dafoe remaking the scene from Blue Velvet where she says "hit me"?
Oh, I didn't realize that. That's a good call out. The Lynchian qualities ever since he did The Kingdom, I think are very. Yeah, I just kind of take them as part of
hugely
the
indebted.
Yeah, very much so.
And I just don't think he gets what makes that shit about Lynch so good.
He has Dafoe, which
part.
Wild at Heart was one of the best things about that Lynch film.
Uh-huh.
I take the Lynchian gestures to be like NWR's frequent obsessive homages to Lynch as just like these guys are working in the field that he created, more or less.
I don't know. If it's not Chow Yun-Fat and John Woo with two guns sliding across the floor, it's like we've seen that a million times, but they're the only ones that do it. And to even try to replicate something so pure from an artist, it's kind of ridiculous.
I would love to do that someday. I've always wanted to do that.
Slide across the floor with two guns?
Yes.
With a toothpick.
It's certainly
in your mouth.
It's certainly explicit, Ken, so I think that's a fair. If you don't like the product, I think it's a fair criticism.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I love David Lynch too, and David Lynch is hugely influential. But
they made a second one?
Yes. This one does not smoke, so he'll be around a little longer. I love you, David Lynch.
I made a clone. It's called a...
David? You're on the podcast?
I'll be around. Long time enjoying the weather here in Southern California.
Not really. You just had to evacuate.
Oh, yeah.
His emphysema is not doing good today, I bet.
Yeah, it's very surreal what's happening.
Because you'll be listening to this many weeks in the future. Hopefully the LA fires have been extinguished.
Yes.
Or LA is just gone.
Wait, you're hoping that LA is just gone?
No. Wow. I said or, not hopefully.
Are we doing a pivot? Are we doing an alt-right pivot? I can clip that for our new social campaign and we can go that way.
No.
All right. Well, we all agree that this is a great film. Is there anything else we need to say?
I will never watch it again.
I might watch it again because your interpretations were both quite interesting.
I would like to ask, I'll probably watch it again. Are you guys fans of something like Audition?
I love Audition.
Oh, yeah. One of my favorite movies.
That's
So,
fucking great.
what? So I don't...
Kitty.
I didn't.
Yeah.
I really disliked that movie for all the same reasons that you guys disliked this one. I don't know that there's anything to say about that. I just think it's interesting.
Huh.
Yeah,
I think I'm
I-
the only one that really disliked Antichrist.
Yeah, I mean,
I
I
think
think that what you're
Jackson's,
saying is
you
it's a like shock horror, Tokyo shock
Mhm.
horror, or like there is something similar between. I mean, there might be an intersection between that and this film.
Hmm.
Well, we'll do Takashi Miike for our next 4x4. So
Didn't we
we'll force
already?
Ryan to...
For some reason, I felt like we watched some of his films, but that must have been a different extreme Tokyo director.
You're thinking
it
of
was,
the
Science Sono.
yeah. Who did
Oh,
the
I'm
Kokomo?
Bummed I missed that. I'll have
movie,
to go back and
the
listen
Christmas
to the
one.
Science Sonos.
Oh, yeah.
I like Mike a lot. I just dislike that one a lot.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, that's literally one of the best movies ever made. Like one of the top 10 best movies ever made. So
Ever?
you're crazy.
Not.
Like ever in the history of cinema?
Ever in the history. I think that's Audition is one of the most important movies ever. Like, I would put it on my Sight and Sound list. Anyway, we're not talking about that.
You have a Sight and Sound list?
If I were asked
Okay.
to, yes.
Because you can if you had one. You don't have to say I
It's
would.
not. There's no official. People don't come to your door in suits. It's not like the Guinness Book of World Records.
Or
Yep,
Latter-day
they do.
Saints. All right.
Great talk about Antichrist. It's getting late. I need to get to church. What's that?
Oh, I was asking if Brother Ken wanted to get us out of here.
No.
No? You want to stick around? Okay. Well, then I will talk about our listener. Join our Only Members club for premium access. We're trying to raise some money to have a fight between Jack and UA Bull, Ultimate Fighting Champion fight. Only members do get the cool, the Pod the Ugly jacket. And then you get cool content as well, like Blood Spurt, Ken's Mega Clip. What is that? What do you call it? Whenever it's just all the clips of penises ejaculating blood in many movies. Supercut. Yeah, so Ken's got a supercut of
all of them.
Yeah. How many?
Okay, we're gonna have to make a list because I only know of one, and we just spent an hour talking about it at length.
There's at least one werewolf movie where, as he changes into a werewolf, his dick splits open.
Oh, that's right.
Yikes! Well, that sounds unpleasant.
You'd love to see it.
It's about the patriarchy, though, so it's fine.
Good one.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to next week for the boss of it all and the finale of our 4x4s. It's gone by fast.
Has it? It seems like it's been forever. Maybe because we've been doing single releases.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
No, but it's been a lot of movies.
Yeah, we'll wrap up. We'll talk about some of those movies next week.
Nolan, for example, Nolan dragged a little bit for me just because of the nature of his style and watching those movies back to back. Even though I really enjoy most of them. This 4x4, because we kept changing, the directors were so different. So it was like each, set of movies, we got a totally different new type of filmmaking to look at, which was
great. We all did great choices on picking these directors. Even though I'm not a big fan of two of the von Triers, I think it's a great contrast to the other directors we covered.
Yeah,
for sure.
All right,
lots of fun.
We'll do a bit of a season 13 recap next week after we talk about Boss of It All.
Boss of it all. Woo. Boss baby. The baby who's also a boss. I wear a suit.
Jesus Christ.
Are we still recording?
We're definitely clipping that for social media.
I want to hear from you. 10-4, buddies. Destroy. Kill all hippies.
I don't hate it. I just don't know why you're straight from the formula.
You bastards. You don't know it, Bob. I'm an artist. And I must reflect that in my rhyme.
Thomas has definitely had intercourse, y'all.
As a final act of misogyny.